Chelsea sat in the dining room watching Ken leave. Her eyes followed him as he shut the door behind him, a hint of sadness crossing her face. She dropped the silverware onto the marble gray plate, frustrated that her time with him had been cut short by an emergency. He said he would be back in 30 minutes, so there was no need to dwell on her disappointment. Standing up, she carried the plates to the kitchen, washing them thoroughly before placing them in the dishwasher. Pouring herself a glass of cranberry juice, she wandered into the living room. The framed photographs on the clean white walls showcased kaleidoscopic memories of Ken, creating a warm, homely feeling. One photo caught her eye, a picture of Ken with Beth Holloway, director of the Holloway charity. Chelsea leaned closer to it, her fingers gently caressing his face in the image. "This was the day we met," she murmured with a smile. The memory flashed back to over a year ago when Rachel and Chelsea volunteered for the Holloway charity, which supported children with autism. Excitement buzzed between them. "Chelsea, it's finally D-Day. Can you pinch me to make sure I'm not dreaming?" Rachel giggled, her eyes sparkling. Chelsea pinched her cheek. "Damn it, girl. I asked you to pinch me, not stab me." Rachel laughed. "Let's grab our badges before the guests arrive," Chelsea urged, guiding Rachel through the hall toward the event space. As they walked, Chelsea collided with a tall, handsome man in a dark blue tailored suit. A file slipped from his hands, scattering papers across the soft red carpet. "I'm so sorry, sir." "I wasn't looking," she said, her voice shaky as she bent down to help. Once she collected the scattered pages, she looked up to find him gazing at her with intense brown eyes and a faint smile. She handed him the file, and he accepted it without a word before walking away with two men in black suits. Rachel stood stunned, then grabbed Chelsea's elbow. "Do you know who that was?" she whispered excitedly. Chelsea shook her head. "Girl, you must be living under a rock." That was Ken Roberts, heir to the Roberts Corporation. Too stressed to engage in Rachel's gossip, Chelsea replied, "Rach, let's go. I don't want to bump into another person and embarrass myself." Later, while handing out gift packs at the charity event, Chelsea noticed Ken standing at a distance, speaking with one of the organizers. He stared at her, and when their gazes met, a thrilling sensation coursed through her. "Chelsea, the hot hunk is staring at you," Rachel whispered, nudging her. "Oh my gosh, he's coming over." Feeling confused, Chelsea urged Rachel, "Stop shaking like a wet chicken." "Hello, Miss Beautiful. Can I have one of those gift packs?" Ken asked, pointing to the table. Chelsea swallowed hard, looked away, and shyly replied, "Sure, sir." "You look shy and timid. Do I make you uncomfortable?" he teased. "I know, sir," Chelsea stuttered, helplessly flustered. "Then, can you tell me your name?" "I'd like to be friends," he said, extending his hand. "Chelsea Powers," she managed, shaking his hand. They exchanged numbers and began talking regularly. Chelsea found herself falling for him slowly. 2 months later, Ken invited her to dinner at a luxurious restaurant. Upon arrival, a lady approached her. "Hello. Are you Miss Chelsea Powers?" Chelsea nodded, and the lady led her to a private room where Ken sat at a table set for two. He stood and, giving her a soft peck on the jaw, said, "Welcome." A jolt of excitement surged through her. This was the first time a man besides her family had done something like that. "Thank you," she stammered, her face reddening. She sat down, her eyes widening at the spread of food. "Is all this for just two of us?" Ken laughed. "I didn't know what you'd like, so I ordered everything on the menu." Chelsea thought he was thoughtful, and after dinner he took her hand and said, "Chelsea, I really like you and want you to be my girlfriend." Chelsea froze in disbelief, her mind racing. "Sorry, but I don't know what to say," she replied, caught off guard. He squeezed her hand gently, questioning, "Do you like me, even just a little?" She nodded, and he grinned, standing up to lower himself beside her chair. With their faces inches apart, he urged, "Then say yes." In a daze, Chelsea responded, "Yes, I will be your girlfriend." His lips found hers for a sweet, tentative kiss, her first kiss, and it felt heavenly. Back in the present, Chelsea's eyes fluttered open. Bright lights filled the living room, and the sound of a TV buzzed in the background. She had fallen asleep waiting for Ken. I guess I really was exhausted from work, she thought. Glancing at the time, she exclaimed, "Oh my gosh! It's 11:45 p.m. I have to get home." Checking her phone for missed calls from Ken, she found her call history empty. Dialing his number, she received the chilling message that it was switched off. An array of emotions flooded her mind, but too tired to ponder deeply, she called a taxi to take her home. Chelsea woke up to the sound of her alarm clock, which flashed 7 a.m. She hadn't slept well, tossing and turning all night. Resentment filled her as memories of the previous evening flooded back, dinner with Ken and his abrupt departure. Slipping into her pink Barbie slippers, she trudged to the bathroom, thoughts racing through her mind. Was he in an accident? With another woman? No, that couldn't be. Chelsea had always been an emotional person, often letting her wild thoughts take over her. She needed to pull herself out of the negative spiral and focus on the busy day ahead at school. After a quick shower and getting dressed, she made a hasty breakfast but lost her appetite, tossing the food into the trash. She headed to the bus stop, deciding to call Ken. After several attempts that went straight to voicemail, anxiety consumed her, and she lost track of her surroundings. A woman standing nearby gently tapped her shoulder. "Ma'am, the bus is here," she said. "Oh, thank you," Chelsea exclaimed, rushing onto the bus. Meanwhile, at the Roberts cottage, Ken entered his father's home office and flopped onto the mahogany sofa. "Good afternoon, Dad. Why did you call me here? Another deal to close?" Simon Roberts, preoccupied with his computer, replied without looking up. "Ken, how's the deal with the Richards? Did you sign the contract?" With a sly smile, Ken replied, "Come on, Dad. You know I've got this. Check your email, I already sent you the contract." Simon admired his son. "I knew you wouldn't disappoint me. What about your distraction? Hope she's not going to cause any trouble." Ken laughed. "Dad, you taught me well. I've got that handled too." They exchanged knowing smiles. Amelia Roberts, already at the dining table, called for Simon and Ken to join her for lunch. Shortly after, they both entered the dining hall. "Honey, where's Myra?" Simon asked. Amelia smiled lovingly and placed a hand on his thigh. "Don't worry. You know how picky she is about food. She'll be down soon." Footsteps descended the stairs, followed by Myra's sharp voice. "Talking about my eating habits, Mama? I'm 22, not a toddler." Through exchanging pleasantries, Myra noticed Ken. "Hey, bro. I didn't know you were back. When did you come in? I thought you were with Helena." Ken smirked, tousling her hair. "Come on, Myra. I've told you not to mess up my perfect hair." "Stop it. It took me all morning to style it," she protested sharply. "If you keep yelling like that, I won't take you shopping as promised. Don't you remember today's date?" Ken teased. Her eyes lit up with excitement. "Of course. You're the best big brother ever. By the way, how's that wannabe girlfriend of yours? Isn't it time to ditch her?" Amelia frowned and stated firmly, "Myra, how can you call another woman such names? Chelsea is a good girl. I don't understand why your brother would toy with her feelings. If you're unhappy, just let her go and focus on someone else. Ken, please don't regret this someday." Myra rolled her eyes. "Good girl, you say? Spare me. She's the most uncultured and stupid girl I've met." Simon spoke gently. "Honey, I'm sure Ken knows what he's doing. Let's not interfere with his private matters." Amelia's tone hardened. "I'm his mother, and I can't watch him ruin someone else's happiness for selfish reasons. I've lost my appetite. You all can continue without me." She stood and left the table, leaving the others stunned. "Never seen Mom this angry before," Myra muttered, while Ken continued eating as if nothing had happened. School, Chelsea sat in the canteen, trying to grab an early lunch since she had skipped breakfast. Suddenly her phone rang. It was Rachel. "Hey, baby girl. Where are you?" "In the canteen," Chelsea replied. "Stay put, I'm coming over," Rachel said. 10 minutes later, Rachel arrived, her eyes widening in shock. "Holy moly, Chelsea. Did you pass through the valley of the shadow of death? Why do your eye bags reach your jaws?" Chelsea chuckled at the exaggeration. "Come on, Ratch. I didn't get enough sleep last night. That's why I look like a walking dead." Rachel's expression softened. "Is everything okay? You look really disheveled. Is it about Ken or that witch Melinda?" Mentioning Ken caused Chelsea's brow to furrow, her demeanor changing as tears shimmered in her eyes. Quickly, she forced them back, managing a painful smile. "It's nothing." Rachel frowned, her gaze fierce. "If you don't tell me what's going on, I'll call Melinda and rain insults on her without asking what she did." "No, please don't, Ratch. It's not Melinda. It's Ken." Rachel's expression shifted, full of concern. "What happened? You know you can tell me anything." Tears rolled down Chelsea's cheeks as she recounted the previous night's events. Rachel's eyes filled with pity and she hugged Chelsea tightly, patting her back. "I'm sure he's okay. If something were wrong, it would be in the news. Focus on your dissertation for now, okay?" Chelsea sniffled and wiped her eyes with the hem of her shirt. "You're right. I need to concentrate on my project if I want to graduate as valedictorian." Just then, Chelsea received a text message from Mr. Edward, her school supervisor, asking her to come to his office. "Rachel, I need to go. Mr. Edward wants to see me about my dissertation. I'll see you after school." Chelsea departed, hurrying to his office. Inside, Mr. Edward sat at his desk, a blue folder before him. His troubled expression made Chelsea's heart race. "Chelsea, I'm sorry, but I have bad news." Her anxiety surged. "Is there a problem with my dissertation draft?" "No. I'm sorry to inform you that your participation as the university's representative for the Martin Lyon Conference has been given to someone else." Chelsea's eyes widened in shock. "But, Mr. Edward, I've prepared for this for over 7 months. How can I be replaced just 2 weeks before the conference?" "Who replaced me?" "Why? Philippa Clark," he said gently. Stunned, Chelsea exhaled slowly and thanked him for his honesty before leaving his office with a heavy heart. Walking along the corridor, she bumped into Philippa as she exited the dean's office. With a triumphant expression, Philippa approached Chelsea. "I'm sure you've heard the news." "Poor thing." She leaned closer, whispering in a condescending tone, "I promised you'd regret coming to this university. This is just the beginning of the end." With a malicious laugh, she sauntered away. Chelsea stood frozen, tears cascading down her cheeks like torrential rain. Chelsea exited Mr. Edwards' office with tears streaming down her cheeks. His words echoed painfully in her mind as memories of months of hard work for the conference flooded back. She had poured herself into gathering data and preparing her presentation, only to have it handed to someone else, especially to Philippa. A lump formed in her throat as she wiped her tears and stepped outside. Needing solace, Chelsea made her way to the secluded forest behind the university campus. She sat on a bench, allowing the tears to flow freely. Suddenly, she heard footsteps approaching, and fear gripped her. Holding her breath, she slowly turned to see someone standing behind her. When she recognized him, her jaw dropped in surprise. "Samuel!" she exclaimed, covering her mouth with her hand. "What are you doing here? When did you get back?" Samuel Melando, who graduated over a year ago and moved to Manchester to take over his family business, had returned to Wolverton for a business deal. He had made a point to find Chelsea, the girl he had always been in love with. When he learned she was dating Ken Roberts, he felt crushed and resolved to let her go. "I went to see the dean about some business, then I saw you walking here and followed you. What are you doing alone?" "It's dangerous," he said, looking closely at her face. "Were you crying?" Chelsea caught a whiff of his fresh, woody fragrance and quickly shook her head, stuttering, "No, no. I had an allergic reaction to something, that's all." Samuel knew she wasn't being truthful but decided not to press. "Anyway, I'm in town until Monday. Want to grab a cup of coffee?" Chelsea hesitated. It felt uncomfortable to meet up with him despite their past. "Please don't say no. I know I used to like you, but let's just go as friends. You can bring Rachel if it makes you more comfortable." His offer eased her discomfort. "Okay," she finally replied. Pulling out her phone, she called Rachel, who answered on the second ring. "Hey, baby girl. Finished with your supervisor?" "Yes," Chelsea responded, nodding as if Rachel could see her. "Are you busy?" "Nope." "Which bank are we robbing today?" Rachel teased. Chelsea couldn't help but smile. "I guess we're robbing the World Bank. Can we meet at the campus entrance?" "Sure thing, ma'am," Rachel replied. Samuel and Chelsea walked to the university's entrance to await Rachel. A few minutes later, Rachel arrived and exclaimed, "My oh my! Samuel, is that really you? When did you get back? Manchester has transformed you from Loki to Thor in 1 year." Samuel laughed heartily. "It's great to see you too, Rachel." Chelsea smiled, clearing her throat. "Rach, Samuel wants to take us out for coffee. Is that okay with you?" Rachel's eyes sparkled, and she nodded enthusiastically. "As long as the coffee is free, Rachel is in." They chuckled and headed to Samuel's car, driving to La Café, a popular coffee shop at the city center which was on the 4th floor of a tall building. They were directed to a table by the window, which offered a lovely view of the street. As they settled in and placed their orders, they reminisced about their time in college. Suddenly, Philippa and Myra entered the cafe and spotted them. As best friends who had known each other since elementary school, they had a reputation for being nasty snobs. Striding forward, Philippa smirked. "I see you're handling your disqualification better than I expected." Chelsea clenched her fists under the table, fury blazing in her eyes. "What's that old hag talking about?" Rachel muttered, her anger palpable. Chelsea, usually good at controlling her emotions, bit her lip to suppress her frustration. "I'm sure your little duckling didn't tell you that her spot as the university's representative for the Martin Lyon Conference was handed over to me," Philippa continued. Myra smirked. "I'm sure she must have slept with someone to get that position in the first place. Thank goodness their eyes are now open, and they see that she's not worthy." Rachel shot up, unable to contain herself. "You better shut that pie hole on your face called mouth before I do it for you." Chelsea, tears filling her eyes, stood abruptly and dashed out of the cafe. "Chelsea, wait!" Rachel called, chasing after her. Watching the scene unfold, Samuel stood and glared at Philippa. "Disgusting," he muttered, walking away, leaving Philippa stunned. Myra held Philippa's hand, trying to comfort her. "Forget about Samuel. He's not worth it." Philippa's expression was pale as they returned to their table. Myra leaned in close, whispering conspiratorially, "You need to move on from Samuel. As for Chelsea, I'll make sure my brother deals with her. She has no idea what awaits her." With a devious smile, Myra whispered her plan into Philippa's ear, and the two girls exchanged malicious grins. What was Myra's plan? Would it involve Chelsea's downfall?